to another Narc Survivor live video. In this one, we're going to be talking about the one reason why narcissists come back. Because there is only one reason for it. They only come back for one thing, but they try to disguise it as other things. They try to make it seem normal because they know how things are supposed to be. They know how people are supposed to act in relationships. So they try to disguise it. They try to make it seem like that's what they're trying to do. And they may try to do that in various different ways. They may try to love bomb you. They may act like they're trying to rekindle the relationship. And they're trying to make amends. They're trying to make things right with you. As though they're suddenly interested in you again. Or they may just go straight to the devaluation, intimidating and coercing you to force you back into it, while playing the victim and acting as though you did something to them. But either way, whatever method they choose, it's just to disguise their true nature and their true actions, because it has nothing to do with you and it's everything to do with them. It's all about themselves. It's all about what they can get from you. They are self-absorbed and they lack empathy. All they care about is themselves. And that's why there is only one reason why they come back. And that one reason is for narcissistic supply. And this could be in various different forms, such as getting your attention, your validation, your admiration, your energy, your life force, your money, your resources, sex, a place to stay, or to use your connections, your friends, just to use whatever you have for themselves. Because that's what this narcissistic false image is all about. That's what they use people for. It's not about a connection. They don't love you, they don't miss you. That's not why they're coming back. They're coming back only to use you. They view people as objects. They even objectify themselves. And when a person objectifies themselves, they cannot view anyone else as anything other than an object as well. And that's how you know that they are objectifying you. And this is why it's the only reason why they come back. Because they view themselves as an object and they've got to have that attention. They've got to have your eyes on them. They've got to have you noticing them, being there for them. Because remember, these are people who never had their emotional needs met in childhood. No one was ever there for them. They felt neglected. Or they were spoiled to the point where now, no matter what you do for them, it's never enough. It never sustains them. Because even if we talk about someone who's maybe been in a difficult situation, and now they believe that they're a victim, all that it takes is that you just make things better for them. You make up for whatever it was that they lost. And then they should return to their equilibrium. They should come back to normal. And it should bring that balance back to the relationship. But that doesn't work with narcissists. Because they have a void, so no matter what you do for them, no matter how much you give, they're still going to be the same. They're still not going to change. Nothing you do will ever change them. It doesn't matter if they want to come back or how many times they come back, they're still going to be exactly the same. They will just disguise it for a certain amount of time. They will wear a mask so that they can get back in. But that's still that exact same person underneath the mask. They haven't worked at anything. They haven't grown. They haven't changed. They can only give you the illusion of that. And that's why those of you who have taken the narcissist back, you notice how it only took a few days for them to then go back to normal. Or sometimes even the next day. They return to their usual way of behaving, to where they're devaluing you, they're putting you down. They're cheating on you, lying to you, stealing from you, because that's who they really are underneath the mask. They'll put the mask back on for a certain amount of time if they think that you will believe in it. If they know that you don't believe in their false self anymore, of course they're not going to use that with you. If they know that you're not susceptible to their manipulation, then of course that would just be a waste of their time and energy. If they know that you're just going to invalidate them, no narcissist is going to deliberately put themselves in a position where they know that they may be rejected or humiliated. No narcissist is going to do that. Instead, they will save that energy. They will save that mask for someone who will believe in it. And instead, all you're going to get is the ugliness of what is underneath that mask. That's what they will give to you, if they think that you will believe in that. So what it really comes down to is your belief in any situation with a narcissist. If you believe in the false self, they will give you the false self. If you believe in what's underneath the mask, and when they're being very intimidating, then they will give that to you. And if you don't believe in any of it, then they will try and find something else. They will try and find something else that you believe in. They will bring in a third party. They will enforce their flying monkeys. They will use anything to harness the power of your belief. Because your belief is pure. Your belief has power. Your belief holds a lot of energy. And that's where their supply comes from. In whatever they're doing. Their supply comes from a person's belief. And of course, many of us, we want people to believe in us. Unless maybe we're going through something. Unless we're in a state of depression. But otherwise, yeah, we want people to believe in us. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're planning on working towards something and you're worth believing in. And I say that because the narcissist is not worth believing in. You can believe in them as much as you want. You can believe that this year Santa Claus is going to come down your chimney with a sack of toys. You can believe that Santa's coming this year. But that doesn't make it true. That doesn't mean he's going to be there for you. But yeah, we may have believed in that when we were kids. I know I did. And there was a lot of magic to that. A lot of excitement. It made you feel special. It was fantastical. But it wasn't real. It was a dream. And not only that, but it's something that likely could never be real. I mean, let's just imagine this. You imagine Santa Claus on his sleigh coming across the sky. And then somehow he lands that thing, however he does that. And then somehow he fits himself down the chimney. It's a nice idea. It's a good story, but it isn't real. And it's the same thing with the narcissist. They want you to believe that they are this person who actually has the capacity to care about anyone else other than themselves. But actually, if you look at it, they don't even care about themselves. Look at how they treat themselves. They shun themselves. They deny themselves, suppress themselves. They don't want anyone to see who they are. And if you think that you're so great, then why not let everyone see it? But they won't. They don't want people to see that. And why? It's because deep down they hate themselves. They don't like themselves at all. That's why they wear a mask. Because they know that people would never accept them. And because people don't accept them, they don't accept themselves. If they could get everyone to accept who they are underneath the mask, and then they could just be that way out in the open, maybe then they wouldn't feel so much shame. But let's keep it real. Most people, they don't accept that. They don't think that that's appropriate. And that's why they have to hide. So they don't even care about themselves. And that's how you know that if they're trying to come back, it's not because they care about you. If they cared about themselves, if they cared about you, they would come back owning everything that they've done. Everything that they've caused, they would own up to that. They would take accountability. And then they would take the steps to change. But they would likely do all of that before they even come back. Before they even think about coming back to you. But they don't. They just come back like nothing happened. And they expect everything to go back to normal. Because it's not about you. It's not about your worries, your problems, your difficulties, your negative experiences with them. It's not about any of that. It's all about feeding their false self. That's all that they're concerned with. That's all that they care about. And that's how, yes, they will come back sometimes, even when they're married, even when they have children. Because even though they may have been flaunting the new supply on social media, and they look like they were having such a great time without you, and now they've moved on, they've started this new life, and maybe they've been gone for months or even years, and then they can still come back even while they're married, even while they have children, because they don't really care about them. They're all just tools. They're just accessories of their false self, of their image. And that's all that anything ever is to the narcissist. That's all that anything will ever be. There will never be any depth. There will never be any substance. There will never be anything more than that. And it's only our belief that makes it seem real. And you can believe in it as much as you want. but that's not going to change anything. You can remain in a relationship with the narcissist, and you can believe that they're a good person, that they're not harming you. That's not going to change what's actually happening. Whether you believe in it or not, it's still going to affect you. Your belief distorts your perception. It even distorts your perception of yourself. And that's why at the end of the relationship, when you finally move on, you're looking back and you're wondering how you ever put up with that. How you ever let yourself go through that. And how you remained in that situation for such a long time. It just seems crazy to you because you know that you wouldn't get involved in that. You wouldn't be there. You wouldn't put up with that behavior. But then you did. Because you believed in them. And it gradually distorted your perception. Even your perception of yourself. It molded you into something else. It made you do things that were out of character to you. When who you were before would have gotten rid of them right at the beginning. And they know that. And that's why they continuously groom and program you to keep you asleep, to keep you unaware of yourself. Because otherwise, once you get that reflection of yourself, and this may have happened to you, maybe you went out somewhere without the narcissist, you had a conversation with someone, they started asking you questions about yourself, maybe they complimented you on your appearance, they asked about your work, they asked about what you do, and maybe about your relationship and all of the things that you do for the narcissist. And then it woke you up. You began to realize your worth. You began to realize how special you are and how this narcissist is not deserving of you. And especially in how they're treating you. And that's why they treat you that way. Because again, it's about your belief. If they keep giving you the false self, and they give you the treatment that you deserve, you're going to wake up. You're going to realize that you're far better than that you deserve more in return for what you're giving out. And that's why they continue with the devaluation. That's why they continue putting you down, making you feel small. Because it's all about control. That's how they keep you stuck. And it's the same thing when they come back. They devalue you while they're using you until finally they've drained you. You've got nothing left. And then they just discard you like a piece of trash because now they've used you up. But then because they've done this before with other people, they know that it's only a certain amount of time until you replenish yourself, until you recharge. And that's when they will come back to you, even if they have a new supply. They will still return because then they see that they can get more out of you. And initially, they may come back with a love bombing. They may reuse the false self if they think that you will believe in it. But then after a certain amount of time, they will return to the devaluation in order to manage your perceptions of them and to control you and keep you stuck so that you continue feeding them, giving them the supply that they need. Or if they think that the jig is up, that you figure them out, then they're not even going to use the love bombing. They won't even use the false character. And instead, they will go straight to the intimidation, the coercion, straight to putting you down because they know you're not going to believe in them. So they will just play the victim. Or if you don't even see them as the victim, they will just rip off their mask and just flat out tell you that they don't care. They don't care if you believe in them or not. And they will just force you to do what they want. They will use any means to control you. And all you're really seeing is just different layers of the mask. If you have a lot of belief in them, you will get the full mask. As long as you believe in it, as long as you're under their spell. But then, once you stop believing in it, gradually, they begin to lift the mask and to show you that ugly, true side to them. And once you no longer believe in them at all, you don't even believe in them when they play the victim, then they'll take the mask all the way off. And they will tell you that they don't care. They don't care that you don't believe in them. They don't care that you don't see them as the victim. And that they're just going to force you to do what they want. And that just reveals what they really care about. All they care about is using you, getting you to do what they want. That's all that matters to them. They don't care about anything else. That's them at their core. They are predators. They look at us like objects, tools, appliances. And they just expect us to drop whatever we're doing, just drop our lives, drop whatever is most important to us. Our children, our families, our work, and just cater to them as though the entire world revolves around them, as though they're the only thing that matters, because they're that arrogant, they're that entitled. They expect everything to be all about them. And that's the only reason why they come back. They don't come back for anything else. If you're dealing with a narcissist, that is the only reason why they will come back. It's not because they love you. It's not because they care about you. It's not even because of anything to do with you. It's all about them. It's all about the benefits and conveniences that they're expecting to get from you. And yet sometimes they use the false character. They try to get you to see them as ideal, when that's just a mask. It's a mask that they use so that they can get what they want. It's not about you. But many of us, we believe in them because we want to believe that it's real. And maybe we believe in them because we believe in ourselves. But again, no matter how much you believe in them, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything because they do not believe in themselves. Their true selves. That's why they wear a mask. That's where they use a false self. And if a person doesn't even believe in themselves, what good are they going to be to you? What good are they going to be to you? Because it all starts with that self-belief. If you can't get someone to have that belief, it's not going to amount to anything. It all begins with our belief. If you look at anything that was invented, anything that was created in this world, it all began with a thought in someone's mind. And then that thought may have become a feeling. But at some point it must have led to a belief, which then became action. Now this is the problem with narcissists. Even if they could have the thoughts and the feelings, It never leads to the belief, which is why it doesn't result in action. And of course, there are reasons why they don't believe in us. And what it really comes down to is that they do not believe in themselves. They do not believe in their true selves. And the reason for that is because they were neglected or abused in childhood, or they were spoiled, and it was heavily focused on superficial things, on their performance rather than who they actually are as a person. And for that reason, they then abandoned their true self and they created a false self. So they gave up on their true self. Of course, we can argue that they were forced, they were coerced into doing that. But regardless of that, it's still what happened. It's still what took place in their childhood, regardless of whether they really wanted it to happen or not. And that's why they don't have any belief in themselves. Because believing in themselves as a child, it didn't get them anywhere. They just got them abused or neglected. So they had to become something else. And of course, by having that true self in childhood, it made them very fearful, very paranoid. They were terrified of being rejected or of being hurt. And that's why now they're so guarded, they can't be vulnerable. You will never get to see that side of them. That is not the side of them when they're angry, when they're upset. You will never see that side to the narcissist. And because of that, nothing is going to change. There's not going to be any growth. Because when we want to build our character and improve our relationships, that's only the only true thing that we have to work with. It's our true selves, where we are able to be vulnerable. Because that's all that we really have. Everything else is just a mask. And again, this is why they only come back for superficial things. They only come back for narcissistic supply to feed the false self. Because they like their disorder, they want to keep it going. They don't want to ever feel that way again as they did in their childhood. It made them feel completely worthless, unwanted, rejected. They never want to feel that way again. So instead, they will only operate with the false self. And because of that, they have to seek narcissistic supply. So don't ever think that the narcissist is coming back because they loved you. They can't love, they have no love to give. To love another person, we must first love ourselves, our true selves, along with all of the faults and mistakes that we have made, along with all of our flaws and imperfections. Because that is us. That's who we are. But of course, the narcissist is never going to do that. And that's why they always have to rely on their narcissistic supply. And that's why we will only ever be supplied to them. We will never be anything more. It will never be anything deeper. There will never be a real connection, true intimacy. That does not exist with a narcissist. And as many people are noticing, that doesn't exist with most people in this world. Most people wear a mask and they cannot be vulnerable. They follow all of these trends and fashions. They just go along with whatever's popular. They're not being their true selves. They're just going along with everyone else. Most people have a hive mind, a groupthink mentality. So they can't be vulnerable with you. And this is why I always advise that if you're looking to make new friends or to have a new relationship, look for people who are empathic, people who are compassionate. The only problem is that many awakened empaths may be quite guarded. I know I am myself. I used to be a very giving, caring person. And I mean, I would give to anyone without asking for anything in return. And I don't usually talk about that much on this channel. But yeah, I've given a lot to people. I would say that I've given more to people than I've given to myself. And of course, I was disappointed a lot of times. It caused me to awaken. And then I became more guarded. Now I don't open up so easily. And although empaths are quite rare in the world today, they are out there, but many of them will be guarded. They may be distrustful. But as for these narcissists, it's not just that they're distrustful. It goes much deeper than that, as many of you may have already experienced. There is nothing that you can do to make a narcissist trust you. And if anything, if they feel like they trust you, they're just going to exploit you, because then they're going to feel comfortable to do that. Really, if a narcissist trusts you, that's not even a good thing. If anything, it's best to keep them on edge, to not have them getting too comfortable around you, because otherwise you never know what they're going to do next. But yeah, my advice is not to give these narcissists another chance. If they come back, they're only going to use you. And the odds are that if they do come back, they're not going to love bomb you. Because now you have awakened, you've got this information. They're not going to pull you back into the matrix again. Because what's the point? Why would they give you the false self if you just wouldn't even believe in it? You don't even think that it's real. So why would they give that to you? Instead, they will probably save it for someone else. Someone who will believe in it. And there's no need for you to feel jealous or to feel like you're missing out. Because I can assure you, you're not missing out on anything. It's not what it looks like at all. Everything the narcissist has is fake. Everything that you saw in them, everything you thought you had with them, that was all fake too. There was no intimacy, no connection. And Even with sex, it's just power and control for them. And that's all that it really is. There's really nothing there when you're dealing with a narcissist. There's nothing to them. They don't have anything. Everything you thought they had, it was just bits and pieces that they took from someone else, or that they mirrored back to you. And then you see them go off into the next situation, and they're using things that they took from you, which may make you feel jealous, of course, because maybe if you always wanted to go to Disneyland, and then you see that's exactly what the narcissist is doing with the new supply, of course it may make you feel like you're missing out, because that's what you wanted to do. That's the experience that you wanted to have. But they're only doing that because it's just the quality that they stole from you, which they're now using to manipulate the new source. And they may also be mirroring the new source as well. So there is nothing to be jealous of. You're not missing out on anything. It's just all fair. And you may notice that when you got involved with narcissists, they just wanted to dumb you down. Everything was just surface level. There was no deep conversations. It's like if you look back throughout your relationship, how many times did you actually sit down and just have a conversation with them? There was all of this chaos and drama, or all of this forced excitement for no apparent reason. And then time just passed you by. There was no depth to it. There was nothing real about it. And it's like they could never be still. There was no peace. Because that's just it. They don't have anything inside of them. Anything that you think you're missing out on with them, I can assure you it's just a mirage. If there was anything deeper, anything more real, but as we know, narcissists, they learn us, they study us, so they should know exactly what we like, exactly what would keep us under their control. So why didn't they just give you that? Why didn't they give you something deeper with more meaning? Why didn't they give you a connection, true intimacy? That would have been a very powerful way of manipulating you and locking you down as a source of supply. So why didn't they do that? If they had that to give, because if they did have that to give, that really goes against everything I've ever learned about narcissism. They didn't give that to you. They didn't give you anything real, anything of depth, because they didn't have that to give. It looks like they do now, because now you're an observer. You're looking at it from the outside. It makes it look much more believable because it's not happening to you. So you're not able to judge it. How can you judge an experience that you're not even having for yourself? You need to be able to experience it directly. And that's how it then makes it more believable when they go off and they make it seem like they're having a deep, meaningful experience with someone else. That's how it works. And then what happens when they come back? When they hoover you? You don't get that. You never see that. You get a bit of love bombing, but then it just goes back to normal. And then leaves you wondering if there's something wrong with you. If all of these other supplies are just so special and they just can't go deep with you. And again, if you believe in it, your belief gives it power. You're feeding into it, they will keep reflecting that back to you. Because your belief is their supply. But that doesn't make it real. You make it real in your minds. And you also make it feel real for them to some degree. But it isn't real. Things can feel real and still not be real. And that's just it with narcissists, because all they're seeking is the feeling. But they can never quite get it, because they're constantly searching for that on the outside when that comes from within. We have to love ourselves first. We must accept ourselves. And then we can accept someone else. But that doesn't work with narcissists, because no matter how much you try to accept them, they're never going to accept you because they don't accept themselves. So all they're going to do is harm you. So that's it. That's the only reason why the narcissist comes back. It's not for love. It's not for intimacy. It's not for a connection. It's for narcissistic supply, power and control. And it's because they can't generate their own power from within, because they don't have a true self. They need control because they're very insecure. So that's why they seek a source of supply. That's why they come back to you. How's everyone doing in this live chat? Are you still with me? I know it went a little bit deep in this one. Got Nala on the bed here. She's got her own bed. One bed just for Nala. Give me a thumbs up down below if you've found this video helpful so far. And thank you for the donation, Faith. Jess says, I'm healing more and more every day, and I've even forgiven him. I was angry for a while, but I understand why people get sick, and he will get his. God is in control. Yeah, healing does take time. It takes time for us to rewire our brains, because of course when we get around narcissists, They wire us in a very certain way. So it takes time for us to heal from that. But honestly, I believe that we are all capable of healing. Other than maybe psychopaths, which tends to be genetic. And there's no cure for narcissists, but they can change their behaviors if they choose to. If they choose to seek therapy. So just think about that. If a narcissist can change, if they can be better, then of course we can as well. And we will be better. We will grow together. Lorraine Diane says he would do DIY at mine, physical things, but dead emotionally. Yeah, that's it. But they trained you to focus on more superficial emotions, to where it's kind of like you're just watching a display, their own personal performance, but you're not actually connected to it because there's nothing for you to connect to. And it's because, yes, as you said, Lorraine Diane, they are emotionally dead. There's no emotion, there's no life, no energy inside of them. There's just nothing there. All that's there is a void. And if that was not true, then how would we be able to say that? John Tracy says they hate stability and peace. Oh, those are two things they most definitely hate. And it can leave you so confused. I mean, you look at it like you worked so hard to arrange things, to make things comfortable for them. And you could have made everything perfect. Maybe they were at work and you were at home. You cleaned the house. You took care of the kids. You had dinner cooked for them when they came home, and they still had a problem. They still had something to complain about. They still weren't happy. And why? It's because they lack stability in their minds. Remember, they have a disorder. So, I know it's difficult, but if you try and imagine this from the mind of a narcissist, the more good things are externally, the more that everything is in harmony, the more perfect things are, the more that it triggers them to reflect on their disorder, on how crazy they feel, on their emotional instability. Because then it's in contrast to the external environment. And that's why they have to shake things up. They have to cause problems for you. They have to ruin everything. This is why they do that. Because they're disordered in the mind. And this is why we see celebrities who have everything and then they just ruin it. or they take drugs, they try to take their own lives, because it doesn't matter what you have externally. It doesn't matter what you have, it doesn't matter who you're with. If your mind is not at rest, and of course, they can't have any peace in the mind because all of their unresolved traumas, the things that were done to them in their childhood, and also all of the things that they have done to people. I mean, there's no way that a person can harm someone and just go off and feel nothing, and then just live their best lives. That doesn't happen. That doesn't make any sense. Of course, it affects the mind. The mind absorbs the trauma. And in fact, research shows bullies are at a 10 to 25 times risk of developing a psychiatric condition more than their own victims. 10 to 25 times. Even if it was just double, that would be a lot. So, again, it's your belief that gives them power. Your belief gives them supply. And they really want you to believe in that, but the reality is that no, it doesn't work that way. They are a result of the things that have been done to them. But remember, the 10 to 25 times, they're more a result of the things that they have done to people rather than what's been done to them. And that's why there's a quote that states that life is 10% of what happens to you and something like 90% of how you respond to it. Two people could be in the exact same situation and get different results depending on how they respond to it. So it's all a result of how they treat people more than what's being done to them. So that means it's actually no excuse. What's being done to them is no excuse for how they choose to behave. And maybe that's why they're so disordered, because they refuse to take accountability. But then, of course, as for people who have been abused, they've been mistreated, those people, they deserve support. And in the right way, of course, they do not deserve to just play the victim for the rest of their lives and use that as an excuse to harm other people or to run smear campaigns. There's no excuse for any of that. But yeah, I created this community to support victims of narcissistic abuse. And that's what my job is. Holly Mayersky says, when you discover who they really are and you have begun to heal, you realize how pathetic they are and that they are just peasants. Oh, they hate her when you realize that. And actually, you do need to be very careful when you begin to see them for how small they really are. And, you know, this isn't just an insult to narcissists. This is actually how it is. They are small. They're extremely weak, vulnerable people. Emotionally, psychologically, they're disordered in the mind. They're very fragile. And that's why the covert narcissist is often referred to as the vulnerable narcissist. Although I would say that even the overt narcissist is vulnerable as well. But that's what this is. It's all vulnerability. They're so vulnerable inside that they can't be vulnerable. And that's why when you start to see them, as you said, as how pathetic they are, when you start to see them that way, you do have to be very careful. Because then you're seeing beneath the veil. You're seeing the man behind the curtain. And that's when they just want to show you, prove to you that you got it wrong. And of course, when that happens, all they're really doing is just putting the mask back on and just putting on a show to you, pretending to be something they're not. And that's all that they can really do. But yeah, you still have to be very careful because, as an example, even a weapon in the hands of a child could make that child very dangerous. And in fact, it could make them more dangerous than if that weapon was placed into the hands of a responsible adult. So narcissists are extremely dangerous. Them being pathetic, being vulnerable, being peasants, that doesn't make them less dangerous, that makes them more dangerous. Jess says, happy, healthy people don't do what they do. Exactly. Happy, healthy people, they won't have the desire to hurt you. And that's how, when they abuse us, when they harm us, and we feel hurt, we may seek vengeance, it's because they've already harmed us. And then once we return to a state of happiness and healthiness, then we no longer desire to seek revenge. But for them, they will always be that way because they'll always be at the beginning of the healing journey. They'll always be right at the start. They'll never get anywhere. Lorraine Dan says they have to stay busy. They can't stop because they might have to think about how demonic they are. Yeah, and that's why it's like when we're around them, it's like we can't stop as well. They'll make it so that you can't stop because you have to help to keep distracting them from themselves. And that's how As we know, they exhaust their victims. They completely break you down. Because all of the negativity has to be focused on you. Or you have to be constantly focusing on how wonderful they are. And it's so that they can never have to think about themselves and who they are underneath the mask. So that mask has to be constantly propped up, either as them being this wonderful person who can't do anything wrong, or as them being the judge, jury, and the executioner. One of the two. Kano says they might be used to more stimulus from the external. Yes, that's how it is with narcissists. And Sam Vaknin confirmed this in his recent video of how they have nothing inside of them. Everything is from the external. And this is why when you're around them, everything's so superficial. Everything is external with them. Well, as for us, it's like all we want to do is just go inside. We want to generate our own energy internally. But you're just constantly having to feed them, and they're just all about getting as much attention as they possibly can. Because everything's external for them. They have nothing inside of them, just a void. And that's why, as they say, empty vessels make the most noise. Because it's like they're screaming out to you, telling you to help them, to feed them, because they can't do it for themselves. Well said, the Jord. The Jord, our moderator, says there seems to be some sort of sheep mentality of these troll hater narcissists in the chat. He says you're all just brainwashed and small. That's it, they are brainwashed. And I think many of these trolls, these haters, they are a part of a network, a group. And that's how you may notice that even though months may pass, there's still many of them there, and they may even repeat the same things from different accounts months later. Now that reveals that they're a part of some form of network which has a database of information that they just reuse from time to time. And it also reveals that they may be running off of a dated database. So they're constantly stuck in the past. It's very creepy when you think about it, but this is just what some people do. They store information. But we also need to store information, but not to attack them with, rather to defend and protect ourselves from their constant attacks. John Tracy says, happy, like hovering outside your window in the dead of night. Oh yes, that sounds like a happy person to me. I'm sure, I mean, any happy person, you got to be like creeping outside people's windows late at night. I mean, otherwise, how can you be happy if you're not doing that? It's usually the victim, the prey, who is happy. And then the predators, they're very angry, very mean. That's typically how it goes. Because it's usually the prey that has most of the energy. The predators, they're very lazy. They get the energy from their prey. The George said it's like they all watch the same sort of TV shows or something and just copy the jokes from it. Happy says it's obsession. They're stuck in an obsession of control and they will get it any way they want. And that's the whole point, really. I mean, you can't experience a connection, real love, true intimacy, until you let go of that control. But then it's like a catch-22 for them, because they know if they let go of the control of your mind, the manipulation, then what are you going to need them for? You never needed them anyway. They needed you. So what's the point in you sticking around? Unless you just feel bad for them. Tit Predict says, praise get tired too. But that's it, because the predators have to deliberately tire out their prey in order to catch them, in order to feed on them. And not only that, they typically target the prey that is away from the herd, or also one that is vulnerable, one that is already wounded. And we see these same traits in narcissists. It's like they're no different to predatory animals. Lorraine Diane says they would make great magicians. Oh yeah, they would be great magicians if they could just make themselves disappear. I'm sure we'd all give them a round of applause. Amanda Siri asks, are they all violent? No, definitely not. Not all narcissists are going to be violent. And often it may be because they're cowards and they're afraid of getting hurt themselves. So many of them will be covert, and they will rely on psychological or emotional abuse. It's a battle of the minds with them. But then, of course, some of them can become physically violent. That can happen. But that being said, I mean, even a victim of narcissistic abuse could become violent. If they're pushed to it enough times, victims can engage in reactive abuse in order to protect themselves. And I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying that's what happens sometimes. I mean, if a person is pushed enough, if they're under tremendous stress and pressure, there's no telling what they could do. Because that's just how we're wired. That's how we're meant to be as humans. Is that if we're in a very dangerous situation, especially if we are outnumbered, we're going to do anything we can to protect ourselves. And that's normal. Happy says they don't understand that once I understood the pattern, I was just having free entertainment. Yeah, it does become entertaining after that. It's only when you're immersed in it, when you're absorbed in it, when you believe in it, that's what gives it power, your belief. But otherwise, once you're detached from it and you practice the observe, the absorb, it all just becomes a laughing stock. It may be difficult not to laugh. It's like a circus show. It just looks like a bunch of clowns putting on an act. They just look ridiculous. Because then you're looking at it as an observer. You're no longer immersed in it. You're no longer tuned into it. You're no longer on that same frequency. So that's what you have to do, is just change your frequency. And then just watch the circus. Watch the clowns. Don't let yourself resonate with it. Don't let yourself believe what they want you to believe. What they already believe about themselves. Amanda CB says, looking at him, I thought a couple of times, I wonder if he's aggressive and violent. Yes, many narcissists will be aggressive and violent. And, you know, with narcissists, that's obviously not a good thing, because it can seem very overreactive, exaggerated, like it's not fitting with what's happening in reality. But otherwise, if the situation calls for it, aggression and violence could be the very thing that saves a person's life. It becomes a problem with narcissists because they're disordered, because there's no actual real threat in reality. They're delusional, they're practically psychotic. There is no danger. And they're just paranoid, they're just overreacting. And it could get to the point where it then becomes a danger to you. And then you may need to start becoming aggressive and violent in order to protect yourself. The problem is that they won't accept that, and they'll just switch it on you. If you react, if you try to protect yourself, they will then point the finger at you. And that's how many victims may have found themselves in trouble with the law. They may have been smeared. It may have caused all sorts of problems for them. And it's because of their disorder, because of how their minds operate. Ace Clean says, predatory animals don't know right from wrong. I had to think about that for a moment. And unfortunately, yes, you are right. They don't know. They don't think that what they're doing is wrong. They just recognize that they need food, they're hungry, and they're wired to kill, to hunt for their prey. And for some reason, as humans, we've always supported predatory animals. I mean, maybe because a lot of people are meat eaters as well, even though that is abuse, it's still harm. But yeah, I mean, narcissists, they may not all really believe that it's wrong for them to do it because they justify it. They believe that they're special or entitled or something was done to them, so now that gives them the right. But then they understand that from other people's perspectives, from the law, from a moral standpoint, yes, what they're doing is wrong. So they know it from that point of view. And humans have done horrible things, especially hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. But as I've said in past videos, the narcissists that are alive today doing what they do, they're actually some of the most wicked, evil, immoral, abusive people of all time. Because although we may look back in time and see that there were abusive people, there were rapists, murderers, all kinds of people, and they did horrible things, at least what we can say for those people is that they didn't have the education, they didn't have the awareness. Now these days there's no excuse, because everyone knows what's right and what's wrong. Anyone can just type it in on Google to know. So there's no excuse for it now. And the more that time goes on, the more true that becomes. And also, looking at the age of the narcissist, I mean, you can get away with doing some things wrong when you're younger, maybe when you're in your teens or your 20s, but then the older they get, to whether in their 40s, 50s and 60s, and they still haven't figured it out. And that's why I say that the narcissists today, they are really the most evil people of all time. Another person asking about the sunglasses. Yeah, I often wear sunglasses, and I use earphones as well. And I often just watch videos on my phone, just anything to distract me, not from myself, because actually I have a good relationship with myself. I like myself a lot. I didn't used to. I actually suffered from depression before, and I even attempted suicide. It took me a long time. It took me many years. But now I have a good relationship with myself. I like myself a lot. But the sunglasses, the earphones, anything that I use to try and separate me from the external world, it's because there's a lot of trauma out there. There's a lot of traumatized people. And I think this is one of the quotes of the Buddha. It was something like, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So, what we see, what we hear, all of these things affect us. And one of the main place where energy is transferred is through our eyes. So instantly, by wearing sunglasses, I feel like there's less negative energy coming into me. And it helps even more when I wear earphones and I tune out the external sounds. Now, of course, when I'm out in the middle of nowhere, which is very rare that I get that opportunity, but let's say that no one else is around, then I just wear regular glasses, I take out my earphones, I don't listen to any music or watch any videos on my phone, and I just enjoy life. I just enjoy the world, because then it's like there's no trauma in nature. Everything's just so free. It's high vibrational. So that's what it's about. That's why I wear the sunglasses. And as I mentioned before, yes, it does affect my eyes. It makes me more sensitive to light. It makes my eyes very dry. And these are all symptoms of anxiety. So then I use eye drops every day. Again, you may also experience those symptoms. And if it makes you feel more comfortable, why not wear sunglasses or earphones? Just don't wear them all the time, because that may be unhealthy as well. It could give you ear infections, and your eyes may become dependent on the glasses, and you may become even more sensitive to light then as well. So those are also things to keep in mind. Ricky DePere says, many animal species have a sense of honor, sorrow, companionship, and fairness and equity. There have been many studies done on this. Yeah, animals aren't all bad. I mean, but that's always been one thing that I disliked. It's always one thing that bothered me a lot. It's just the cruelty and unfairness in the animal kingdom. And I don't really want to talk about it too much, because it's quite triggering for me as a vegan. But I think you will all know, that there's certain predators out there, and the way that they kill their prey, and the animals just go through such insane suffering. And also I think it's 300 billion animals are killed every year by humans for their meat. I mean, the amount of suffering on this planet is insane. And it's like no one has the urge, the desire to minimize it. And I just don't get it. I just don't understand how people cannot put themselves in the animal's shoes. Although I know animals don't wear shoes, but I mean, see things from their perspective and how it affects them, because you know, these are their lives. These animals have real feelings. They can experience real affection. They can love us. And they go through pain. And that's why I just don't understand how this can happen in the world. But then, of course, it's because most people just don't care. And, you know, I get that as well, because it was only 5 years ago that I was still eating meat. And I wasn't really thinking anything of it. But this all comes to us when we raise our consciousness and awareness. We begin to realize that any harm that we cause, that harms us as well. We absorb the stress hormones of the animals that we consume. That becomes a part of us. And also then there's these growth hormones. Sometimes they give steroids in the meat, and we absorb that as well. I'm just completely against eating meat. I'm against harming animals, and I just don't get it sometimes. It's like how there are these charities for animals to protect them from people who have pets and they abuse them. Such as, you know, I've seen cases. There was some guy who he abused and then murdered a cat, I think it was. And then he went to prison for quite a long time. And of course, I mean, you know, that's great. That's a step in the right direction. But then hold on, what about the 300 billion animals that are killed every year? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like they treat one situation in the correct way, but then there's hundreds of billions of animals every year going through the same thing and possibly worse. Maybe they're killed in a worse way. And everyone just accepts that. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like people are very selective about how they judge things. They don't judge everything equally the same. But yeah, for those of you who aren't vegan, I highly recommend it. I feel so good in myself. And when I'm around animals, I don't feel guilty. I feel like I can connect to them more. And I just feel like I'm doing my part on the planet to protect life. And also my body feels much healthier. I'm 35, but I feel much younger. Ricky DePere says psychopaths do not experience empathy at all. It's a fact of cognitive science. Yeah, you're right, there's no empathy with psychopaths. There's just no feeling at all. The only thrill they get is from harming people, or from tricking them, deceiving them. But with narcissists, they do have cognitive empathy, so they can read into your emotions. They can read into how you feel, but they can't feel what you feel. So it doesn't affect them, whereas with the psychopath, they may not even know how you feel at all, or how you're meant to feel. They may not even know how they're meant to feel in certain situations, so they can seem completely off, like they're just in another world entirely. But yeah, oh, I got a dead leg. Sitting down awkwardly. No, I was relaxing on the beds. Stretched out. But yeah, I got some more work to do now. I'm gonna be working on my next video, which will be up in the next few days. And it will really just be talking about the duplicity of narcissists and how there's two sides to them. There's the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So that will be up in the next few days. But yeah, thank you all for joining me on this live. Give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe and click all notifications so that you will be notified when I go live again. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You can donate through my PayPal. It's paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you would like to book a one-on-one, just go to my website. It is narcsurvivor.co.uk. And follow me on Instagram. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. I'm posting every day from my trip last year to Taiwan and Japan as well. So you can see all of that on my Instagram. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. Thank you all for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video, and I will talk to you soon.